God, this fly. For many, many years, I've been chasing after the ultimate Mercedes unicorn of the 90s, with only 1,500 of these Mercedes 500Es brought into the United States over the course of 3 years. It's a pretty rare sight on today's roads, but this car in particular has spent all of its life where I live in Wichita, Kansas, and I saw it pretty regularly. I remember approaching the owner about 10 years ago, and it was a female, and I asked her, "Do you realize how special this car is?" And she probably thought I was an idiot or sexist, and she looked at me and just went, "Well, yeah," and drove off. I never spoke to the owner since, but I did see the car off and on for years, and when it did finally come up for sale, and it was priced as the cheapest 500E in the United States, I didn't hesitate. I bought it. And now that I own this unicorn, well, the pointy end's probably going to end up stabbing me right through the wallet. The wallet's in my back pocket. Yeah, it's very broken. Currently on AutoTrader, and linked below is my column on autotrader.com/oversteer. There are only 4 500Es listed for sale in the entire United States. And the price range is pretty big, ranging from as low as $25,000 to as high as $63,000. That's a huge swing. And recently at Bring a Trailer auctions, there's a 500E, same year as this one, that brought $62,000. Now that car had some Rentec performance modifications done to it, but it had 120,000 miles on it, more than this car has, and it brought that much money last week at auction. Personally, it doesn't make sense to me. I think at $60,000, whether you're an old Mercedes lover or new, you want the latest performance Mercedes, $60,000 could buy you a whole lot of car. Thankfully, this 500E, I mentioned it was cheap. It was only $10,000. $10,000. And you're probably thinking, why so cheap? Well, part of it has to do with the puddle that's growing underneath here right now, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. If you take away all of its mechanical deficiencies, overall the condition of this 500E is very nice. The hood star was removed, and I think there's a reason for that, but I don't think the car has ever been wrecked or had a big repaint. And other than these hideous period correct aftermarket wheels that are not aging well, everything is really stock on this car. Oh man, look at those fender flares. Oh. The interior is really nice too, just normal wear and tear. Okay, I think the battery has charged up, and under the hood it looks very tidy in stock as well, with the exception of the hood pad falling down. It looks rather nasty, but anyway, easy to fix. Now the pedigree on this car is equally impressive. The original owner is a rather famous or infamous billionaire that's local to Wichita, and he had it for a few years before selling it to one of his employees who owned it all of this time, almost 20 years, until the car kind of fell into disrepair. Too many things just stacked up, and so they decided to sell it, and I stepped in. It needs a lot of things, but I'm really happy with the price. But if you go back to 1992, it would make sense for a billionaire to buy this car, not just because of the price. It was $82,000 new, which is really expensive in 92. That's like $146,000 in today's money. So it would have taken a person of a certain means to be able to afford this thing. But I doubt even at $82,000 Mercedes made any money on these vehicles because the production process was so long and complicated. It's reported that one Mercedes 500E took 18 days to build, and that's because Mercedes outsourced the production and a lot of the engineering to Porsche. Porsche had their 959 factory idled and a lot of engineers looking for something to do, so they tasked them with figuring out how to stuff a V8 in their midsize sedan, and then told them to put it together. The original chassis, which was built to take an inline-six, was sent over to Porsche to get modified to accept a V8, and then sent back to Mercedes for painting, I think, to coat it, and then sent back to Porsche so they could actually put in the engine and the mechanical bits and that kind of stuff. Then shipped back to Mercedes again for more assembly. There may have been even more back and forth there, but as you can see, it was really complicated and really stupid. But the result of this crossover that rivals Avengers Infinity War is really, really impressive. This thing is amazing. Finally, Mercedes had built something in-house, or mostly in-house, that could rival or beat the BMW M5. Some of you may be thinking the Hammer, the AMG Hammer, was built well before this 500e, but at the time AMG was an aftermarket company. The differences between the standard Mercedes sedan and this 500e are subtle, but boy do they look good. Starting with these fender flares front and back that could accommodate the wider 16x8 wheels. The interior was also sported out with some Recaro Sport seats, and matching in the rear are two buckets as well, with a beautiful burl center console. Oh yeah. Now the V8 they shoehorned into this brawny sedan put out 322 horsepower and propelled this big sedan to 60 in under 6 seconds, which is pretty impressive for 1992. So overall, this 500e is really impressive, and it would be easy to call it one of the most beautiful sedans ever made. That's something that Porsche and Mercedes has struggled to pull off since. The Porsche Panamera and the Mercedes CLS 2x2 sporty sedans, they didn't look very good, at least in the first generation. They really never captured the magic of the 500e. Now, apparently these cars drive fantastically, and I've never driven a sorted one before, and I have no idea what a sorted one drives like because this one is quite a mess. Hopefully it starts. There we go. Come on, clear your throat. There we go. Actually, before we set off, I've run out of water. It needs coolant. Okay, we'll bring this along just in case we need any more top-offs. There we go. So in addition to the massive coolant leak, this Mercedes is misfiring quite badly, and that could be because of a number of reasons. None of those are cheap, but it gets worse. The transmission has a really long delay going into reverse and is jerking pretty hard during shifts. That could be an adjustment, that could be an entire rebuild. And just to complete the trifecta of the drivetrain, the rear differential, I think, is howling badly. It could be the tires, but I'm thinking it might be differential. So the entire drivetrain is screwed, totally screwed. On top of that, I have numerous electrical problems, such as this seat. If I move the seat backwards, it goes forwards, and if I move it forwards, it goes forwards. So I go forward no matter what, unless I jiggle the switch in just the right way. My SRS light is on, which is for the airbag system, the safety restraint system. Who the heck knows what that is? And there's plenty of other little things that need to be taken care of, like the hood pad and the missing star. I suspect that the original owner didn't want the hood ornament on there to kind of go under the radar, because when you're a billionaire, you want to go under the radar. Most of the time. I think this one does. All right, let's floor it. Now, smoothed out for a second there and launched pretty good. I could feel the power, which makes me think, since it's an intermittent misfire, that is probably a wiring issue. And thankfully, there are people that still rebuild the wiring harnesses on these cars, so I'm not totally out of luck. The suspension and brakes also feel pretty good as well. Porsche engineered the suspension and lowered it quite a bit from stock, and it does feel a lot different from a normal Mercedes sedan. It does feel, there's fly on my nose, it does feel sportier, as sporty as a Mercedes of this era can be. The closest thing to it, I guess I could say, is like a 500 SL, ones they made in the 90s at the same time as this. It has the same engine, same transmission. That Fly, again, probably a similar sporty suspension setup as well. And I've owned several of those. I actually bought one on the reality show It was a hurricane flood car out of Houston, and boy was that a mess. I'm really excited actually because my reality show on the FYI channel, Car Issues with Tyler Hoover, it airs Saturdays at 9 p.m. Central, 10 Eastern. It was the #1 rated show on the FYI network on Saturdays. So for those of you that had cable and are able to catch it, thanks so much. Please keep watching because there is a chance that I'll get another season if you all keep watching. And while I'm plugging it, we might as well do a preview for the next episode about some cool cars. As cool as that looks, I probably should hose it off. Even got it inside. Okay. Welcome to Jurassic Park. This is a childhood dream come true. I need to unleash the beast inside of this thing.
That's against the law.
I see. Faster. Let's go faster.
You bought a Jeep without four-wheel drive?
Hopefully it's not one big pile of... Only 3 weeks left, and there are some really cool cars like my Jurassic Park Jeep, Dodge Viper. God, this fly. There's several other cars. And I better get this thing back to the garage. I was going to drive this thing up to the Wizards tomorrow for an inspection, but I don't know. I might have to tow it. But the bad news is that head gasket blew on my Toyota Previa van, the supercharged Toyota Previa, and it definitely won't make it up to the Wizards. So do I tow two at once or do I chance it with one? Unbelievable. The Hoopty fleet is definitely earning its name. Oh. So clearly I have a lot of problems, so it won't be long before I spin myself out of it being the cheapest 500e in the USA. But given the crazy values of these cars, I think it'll be a worthwhile investment to sort this car out and make it great again. Then I'll decide if the car's worth all the hype and if I should keep it or sell it. And hopefully I want to keep it because I sold my 1995 Mercedes C36, which I loved, to fund this project. So please be cool. Thank you for watching.